Welcome to the Dig Endurance Podcast, where we are all about digging deep and discovering the power of emotional resilience. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined by my brother, Shaun.
As endurance athletes and business owners, we have learned a thing or two about facing and overcoming adversity. We are here to share inspiring stories from our guests that will help you to find that inner strength when you feel like you are running on empty.
Are you ready? Let's dig in. Well, welcome everyone back to the Dig Endurance Podcast. I'm Aaron, and
Shaun.
This is Shaun
Hi.
here. Just picking back up where we left off last time. We're gonna stick to another round of talking to each other and getting to introduce ourselves a little more to our audience, tell a little more of our story, and as we do that, in the near future, we'll start to bring on some guests with us as well that we'll discuss some various topics with.
I think next week we do we not?
Yes.
I think we're bringing Evan.
Yeah, next week we'll bring Evan.
Killer story.
Yeah, who happens to also be our brother-in-law,
Yeah.
but he's a great example of digging in his own right and overcoming, and yeah, he is a very very good story.
I'm excited for that. It's gonna be awesome.
That'll be a good one to share.
He was an easy first choice for the podcast.
Yeah, and he can't tell us no anyway.
No,
so.
we didn't give him a choice.
No, we didn't.
He's in.
So today, in the spirit of carrying on, with the podcast and our focus again, for those who may be, just coming around to us, we like to, the idea of digging in is digging into topics where, we're focusing on stories that talk about, overcoming various obstacles, challenges, adversity, and what it takes, to be able to do that, and specifically stories that illustrate being able to do that.
And how it can be applied across the board, right? So It's not just Aaron or I, it's all these different given situations that we can have, whether it's people on the show. We really want to tap into that whole spectrum of how different types of people in different situations are able to dig in and find their way out.
Yep. Business, personally,
substance abuse, mental health.
In your family, I think the principles we focus on here are, there's a little bit of something for everybody in various aspects of their life, which is the idea. Today, I think, Shaun and I have discussed this past week a little bit and chit-chatting, and I think what's on our mind a little bit today is the idea, last week we kind of focused on specific challenges that you and I have overcome and told a little bit of some of our story. I think that something that is an important principle in regards to digging in and overcoming, something I think we didn't touch on last week is it's not something that happens overnight.
I agree.
Like I feel a little bit like if you're listening to our story, you kind of got the short version, not the long version. So
we're going to tap into the patience topic now.
What was kind of missing in between is that's not like, boom, snap the fingers, you're out of the dark place, you saw the light, and all is well. It doesn't work that way.
Well, that's the struggle with a lot of people, right? They want it now. They don't want to wait. There's no patience in part of the game.
Right. And as frustrating as it is to say, there is strength in the struggle, though, and there is something to be learned of the process. And if you can learn to be patient, as uncomfortable as it can be, I think that there's a lot of the teachable moments in what is the process and how long it takes sometimes to claw out or dig in and overcome a situation. Specifically, something to be said of, like you said, the patience, but also the consistency that is needed and required in order to, overcome challenging situations. We mentioned you and I are both into endurance racing, and training.
Yep.
And by its very nature, that is definitely, I guess, unless you're a freak of nature, that's not something you can.
Those are rare.
Yeah, that's not something you can just, again, like, I think it can't be overstated how important consistency is, really in anything, but like to use the example of endurance training.
Yes. Consistency is key.
Right. Well, Shaun, you coach me, obviously.
Yes. Yep.
And so we use various devices. Shaun and I are both wearing our fitness.
I know where this is going already because I was going to bring it up today.
Oh, perfect. Our fitness gadgetry. But when you're an endurance runner and like I've been doing, for the last, 7-8 years, maybe before I mentioned how I was always kind of ahead of you and I never took you seriously when you got into fitness. And then all of a sudden, Shaun has lost all this weight, and not only has he lost weight looking good, he's faster than I am. And come to learn, and of course, here I am, humbled by that. And it's like, well, Shaun, what are you doing that I'm not doing? And a lot of it is consistency. And not that I wasn't consistently training, but it's not just the training, it's also consistently tracking, consistently using things like a heart rate monitor, consistently following a plan, consistently following certain workouts on certain days. Whereas I thought I could just consistently just exercise or, right. run, so to speak, all those certain mileage, but I was still very elementary in my approach. Right. And, the results were, same race times over the course of 7-8 years, whereas you go from barely running to surpassing me in like a matter of 2 or 3 years. And so I think there's something to be said of consistency and intentionalism, and to me, and I'll kick it over to you to talk more about this. You're the more seasoned coach than I am. I am but still the Padawan in this regard. But to me, there's consistency. If you're consistent, you make the plan, you stick to the plan, a detailed plan, and you're consistent with it, that creates momentum. Momentum creates results. Results creates confidence. And if you're confident, you build that confidence from the results, and then it just becomes this cycle. That
what happens with the confidence, right?
And the confidence comes from achieving the result, and then it's like, okay, I opened this business, and I got to hang on it. What else can I do? Or I opened this one location, maybe I can open more. I've taken in 10 clients, maybe I can get to 20. I've ran a 3.5 hour marathon. Maybe I probably could run a 3:15. Okay, check the 3:15. Probably can get to 3 hours. So yeah, I feel that for me, that's kind of been my cycle and my kind of that's my experience with consistency, momentum, results, confidence.
Well, that's the difficult part though, because the confidence part's all internal at the end, right? So the best part about getting to that point is all these frustrations that are taught or learned or whatever it is. You get to that end point in confidence, not to be confused with ego, which is a totally different thing. That confidence is all internal, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is, internally you look back on that consistency that you had. You look back on that path that you just walked down or ran down, whatever you want to say, right? Now you know that by applying all of those little annoying things, whether it's a heart rate monitor that you decided to wear every single day, or the green check boxes that you decided to apply to your coaching routine or your training routine, all of those things did add up to that confidence. So now you go back and you're like, you know what? I just learned something. I'm going to apply it. And then that consistency is built even more. So when you go through that process again, your confidence is just laid out. You know that the answer is right there. You know it. It's not even a question at that point. The funny thing about consistency is it's the same for everyone. The actual definition of it is the same. It doesn't matter if your situation is, in addiction. It doesn't matter if it's in training. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with anxiety and depression and you're receiving therapy. It doesn't matter if you go to work all day and you're extremely unorganized and you're trying to apply some sort of organizational skill. Any type of consistency is doing it over and over and over and over and finding a way that makes you see results, right? I mean, if you don't see results, obviously you get to a point where you're trying to check what you need to change or what you need to modify. When you have a routine or when you have consistency, you're starting to develop responsibility. You're starting to develop a sense of, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm headed.
See, to me, that's the momentum. That is right there, the momentum.
Yeah.
It starts to feel like momentum is like a forward motion.
Yeah.
And you start to feel that, like with what you said. I have a purpose. I know where I'm heading.
Yes.
This feels good. You start to get a little taste of the results. Maybe not the full result you want.
Right.
That's the momentum.
Right. So funny how you say momentum, because I was just getting into a point of where, like, if you're moving forward, it's a lot more difficult for anything around you that represents anything negative. You're going to the gym, right? You've got your momentum. You're going forward. You're attending the gym. Let's say you go to the same gym all the time, and all of a sudden someone approaches you to, I don't know, go to the bar for the night or go out for the week. Whatever it is that they approach you with, you're moving forward. It is much more difficult for someone to come to you and grab your shirt and pull you back when you're moving forward, versus if you're just standing idle and you have nothing else to do. It is really easy for someone to just grab you and pull you off your path. Mm-hmm. It's like the easiest thing ever, in fact. I mean, anytime I'm sitting idle, Aaron, it's so easy for someone to shoot me a text and be like, hey, you want to go get Sprinkles Donuts? Hey, you want to go do this? Hey, I'm like, yeah, I've got a couple hours. Let's do it. Whereas if it's 7:30 in the morning, whereas I'd much rather be like hanging out in bed, or I don't know, with my kids, or hanging out with you, maybe going on a run with you. I find myself here in the office. Over the past year, I have applied certain, let's say, new rules in life for being a little bit more organized and consistent based on feedback I received on things that I do great and things that I don't do so great. One of those things I did not do so great was managing my time. Even though I knew what I was doing, if I would show up somewhere like the office, I would just kind of be like, all right, well, I can do this, and I can do this and this. But, like, which three do I pick? Whereas a simple task of putting those items on the calendar once a week at the beginning of the week and labeling them out for a set amount of time, it allows me to come in. There's no confusion.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there wondering, like, what do I need to be consistent about? I just do it.
The word is intentional.
It's very intentional.
It's very, very difficult to be consistent when you're not being intentional.
Oh, interesting.
Very difficult.
I find that to be correct.
Having a plan, having a map, having a guide, for me, it's insanely important to write things down. I mean, for me.
4 kids.
I literally have a yay big planner / calendar.
I've seen it.
Notebook. That is Aaron's Bible.
That's the Bible.
That's meetings. That's notes. That's dates. That's my plan. That's what needs to get done. That's what gets done. That works for me. That doesn't necessarily work for everybody. However, I would say if you have nothing, like no system, and you're trying to be, for my wife, it's a massive calendar that's literally plaqued on our wall in our house. It literally takes up a whole wall. It's
I've seen it.
Acrylic calendar.
Yeah.
If you are not intentional, it is very, very difficult. I would argue very near impossible to be truly consistent.
So can we apply that across the board?
Yeah.
Intentional with everything. So if you're going to some therapy sessions with your therapist and you just want to go there and talk the whole time, there's no intention there, right?
No.
If you're going there with the goal of relieving anxiety symptoms, depression, stuff like that, and you have a goal over the next 6 months to work on certain emotional regulation skills, stuff like that, you're going to find yourself in a place in 6 months, as long as you are actively consistent and intentional, you're going to find yourself in a better place. What happens if you go for your run and I just type in run on Saturday? Just, hey, run. How are you going to feel? Versus if I type in 2-hour run and we're going to do 3x5Ks at a certain amount heart rate, you're going to show up, heart rate's on, watch is set, you're running 3 5Ks. You know what you're doing. You're going to end it. Not only when you're done, now you know that your intentions were there. You're going to look at your performance and you're going to measure out your goal for the next week.
It's a good example because, so take somebody, what are the metrics again on if I'm looking into, Training Peaks or something?
Yeah, you've got heart rate, pace, distance, time.
Overall fitness, right?
So training load, fatigue.
If I'm just running, so if say I'm just running week in, week out, and I've been running for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. Say I'm doing what you just said. Maybe I'm doing mileage, okay? I might be tracking that, which is what a lot of novices tend to do.
Right.
But if I'm not going beyond that, heart rate, effort, including distance, time, the whole gamut, nutrition.
Yeah.
What do my results tend to look like if I'm just doing it and checking the box? You've shown me even.
They're very confusing.
It's kind of just, but overall the trend is flat. It's literally, it will not do this.
Yep.
You may see a little bit of this. At best, you'll typically see that.
Maybe some random spikes here and there.
And especially as you do what you and I are
unfortunately
little. Starting to do, which is getting old. And yes, we're getting old.
No, I'm not.
I feel old. But you'll top out. And I would argue that can absolutely be applied in real life, whether it's business, family, whatever. If I'm just showing up to work, no plan, no calendar, I'm not mapping out my day, not mapping out my time, I don't have a plan for how I'm going to use it, and I'm just knocking out what's in front of me and just kind of like spitballing it, I would argue, if that's your approach, that this is probably you going through your work day or going through life.
I would be more like this.
Well, some do that because they get burned out. Either way, this or this is not that. We can agree on that. Totally. At best, you're maintaining. At worst, you're declining. Neither is progressing. So, just like training, if you don't have a plan, an intentioned use of your time, mapped out, or certain goals that you're working on, or certain deadlines that you've set for yourself, and you don't have a system in place to put that all in front of you to be intentional and therefore help you be consistent, unless you're doing those things. Again, I don't care what the system looks like for you, but if you don't have a system similar to training, like you just said, you will hit a ceiling, you'll decline, and that's obviously not going to help you to progress, grow, hit goals, achieve more.
You're looking at other risks too, Aaron. Yeah. You're looking at injury risk, right? You're looking at lack of motivation, lack of accountability. I mean, I could go down the list like you were saying. It's this line or it's this line. It's not going to go up.
So we agree. Being intentional is critical to being consistent.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely, critical.
Can't just throw random stuff.
Now here's where it gets hard. Here's where you got to dig. And especially if and as a business owner and also training in endurance, this inevitably happens to everybody. There's nothing more frustrating than when you've been intentional, you are consistent, you've made a good plan, and you fall short. Talk about that.
That's a good point, because that's what we're going to talk about.
So let's take, for example, not this past Two Cities Marathon, but the previous year. I remember you were, as usual, you're a step ahead of me. I'll catch up at some point. But
all right.
I was doing the half marathon.
Okay.
And I ended up running my PR that day, which I eclipsed again this last year.
I remember
with your help. It was a great feeling. So here you are. You've trained me. I hit my half marathon PR. I'm on cloud nine. I feel great. So here you come. You've been putting in your own training and time. You're trying to qualify for Boston. What do you come in at? 3:02, 3:01?
Oh, for the Boston time?
No, for the Two Cities, not this year.
3:05 and 26 seconds.
And how short were you off the Boston?
26 seconds.
26 seconds short. So 1 second per mile. If you would have been 1 second faster per mile, you would have qualified for Boston in 2021.
And let's not talk about the bathroom stop that was. I think I measured it on my Garmin. It was either 27 or 28 seconds, something like that, at Woodward Park.
So
I had to.
So
ruined me.
You miss it by 26 seconds.
Yeah. And
then interestingly, like me, you and I also fall into a rut of injury after our races. I thankfully, again, I get to tell a fun story because I've also had bad races.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to use an example where I had a good one. But you put in all this time, you've leaned out, you're in the best shape you've ever been, you stuck to the plan, and you still fell short. And then on top of that, to boot, you've gotten injured in the wake of that. So how do you regain momentum, regain momentum, and still believe in consistency, even though you set a goal and you fall short?
Yeah.
I think that it's easy. It's certainly easy once you've built momentum and you start achieving goals time and time again. I would argue, though, if you're doing that, by the way, that you're not shooting high enough. You're just kind of consistently putting the same challenges in front of you. If you're really climbing and challenging yourself, you're not going to continually necessarily keep hitting all those goals all the time. I would argue that if you're stretching yourself and you're really trying to, improve, whether that's in, again, family, life, business, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is, physically, that you're going to be laying out some stretch goals in front of you. So I guess, real quickly, I guess I would argue unless you fail from time to time, you're probably not pushing yourself quite enough. So just there's that little nugget.
Okay.
And second, but when you do fail, what do you do? How do you still keep faith in this idea that, hey, intentionalism and consistency and momentum, that it will lead to results, even though I missed it this time? What do you do to reset and still, stick to that? I mean, that program.
I have a pretty straight answer for that. I have a unique situation in my life, whereas, I made this decision to just be like the most troubled human being ever. I thought if I made the worst decisions in my life, somehow they'll turn into good decisions. It's not how it worked. So what has happened with all these bad decisions is I've learned that as long as I keep trying and I keep staying consistent and I keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over, which has taken me over a decade to figure out, this has allowed me to hit those points of, what was the term you used at the end of all your training and when you hit that final part of, I believe you said confidence, right?
Yes.
My confidence comes, it's definitely internal. So if something comes to me like the Boston thing, if you remember correctly, I was coming off of 8 months of long haul COVID. That was like, I don't even know how to, it was terrible. I'm sure you remember that. I think you used to joke, hey, Shaun, did you forget how to run? You remember that, right? So those were terrible times, to say the least. I couldn't even get out of bed. I mean, it was just, doing something was unfathomable. I couldn't even go and get a bowl of cereal. It was just terrible. A real dark moment in my life that actually did not have to do with substance abuse or any other dumb decisions. It was just something I actually did not decide for once. So at the end of that, all of a sudden, over the course of like a week, I mean, out of nowhere, just everything went away, energy came back. And so I started running with Evan randomly, him and a friend in the mornings. I could barely keep up. I was just dying. It was terrible. So I came back into it, and then I had a meeting with my coach, Clayton, and he was like, here's the plan. I'll lay it out for you. You got to check the boxes. You got to check the boxes. Find a way to do this in and out. And I just like, okay.
That's an important phrase, I think, right there that we should stop on.
Okay.
And if you're listening, I think you should, this is what I'd make note of. Check the boxes. That is a nugget to me. Check the boxes.
Yeah.
Because I think something that's key with consistency, you've heard do the little things, right?
All the time.
Do the little things. I mean, you nag on me all the time. What I'm notorious for in my endurance training is forgetting my chest strap. That's
all the time.
That's a little thing.
It is.
And if I forget the chest strap, that makes it hard to properly track the HR, my heart rate.
And then the metrics upload incorrectly.
And then the metrics get impacted. So that one little thing can impact so many other things.
Everything.
And if you forget that enough, then it impacts multiple days of training.
It creates a random up and down on your chart that I'm not able to utilize.
So to me, that would be check a box.
Yeah.
Okay, check the box. And it's not just... What I don't like about the phrase checking the box is it makes it feel like, okay, just check the box to check the box. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that sometimes...
They're intentional.
Sometimes the tiny little seemingly mundane things, though, if you haven't read the book, what's it called, about, is it Make Your Bed? Mm-hmm. It's something to that effect. It's by a retired military guy who I can't remember his name right now. But the essence of that book, too, is check the box. And it's not for the sake of checking the box. It's because... all the little things add up, and the little things also give you momentum at the start of your day, and they're what keep the results from this to steady over time.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyway,
well, no,
I think
that's
that's
fine. That's
an
great
important
because
one to focus on.
I mean that's kind of the point, right? Checking the boxes got me to that marathon. I had not planned on qualifying for Boston. What had happened is I checked a bunch of boxes and I saw a bunch of results. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, Evan was like, oh, you could qualify for Boston. And I was like,
oh, yeah,
I don't even know what...
I probably could.
Yeah, I don't even know what the time is. And so I went and did a couple long runs, and sure enough, based on metrics and everything, I thought, hey, might as well go for it, And then the big goal, there was an Ironman 2 weeks later. So it was kind of like that last hurrah of a training build, right? And so my coach kind of built in a plan. And I will provide an excuse here, though. I think I hit, before Sunday, maybe, 20 hours of training. I had ran a half marathon on Thursday off of a 70-mile bike ride. I had done all kinds of stuff, right? The fatigue and stress levels were maxed out. When I finished the marathon, I think it was at like 62 miles for the week. So all in all, I was able to take the entire situation and say, hey, look, this is where you're at. These are the boxes you checked. Yeah, you missed out on this goal, but like, where does that put you in 2 weeks, right? It's really simple for me. Here's the challenge. Here's how you got to the challenge. Have you seen it before? And what did you do to get through it? So when you're applying consistency across the board, that is the confidence. The confidence is what becomes the cycle, right? You were mentioning earlier the cycle. That cycle is it. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what your goals are. If that cycle isn't there, which does apply to everyone, you're still going to get stuck. So everything's intentional. Even the littlest boxes, they're all intentional. So we could sit here all day and tell you how to add stuff to your calendar, how to carry a brown leather book and write stuff down in every meeting, which I see you do religiously. We could tell you how to do all these things physically, but until you actually do them and reach even just the smallest step forward and get some of that confidence, you're going to be stuck trying to find the cycle, and it's not going to be a cycle. It's going to be a zigzag of some ups, some downs, and just in general, just kind of a lost feeling,
Well, basically until it becomes a habit. You have to do something. I can't remember the science. I think it's for at least I want to say it's like pushing a week, leave it a little less, a little over. I think it's less than a week. I think it's just a couple days. If you do something consistently, that it can become technically a habit. Another really good book recommendations, Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits is a great book. But to me, if you are able to intentionally build up a lot of small good habits, the combination of those is really what creates the consistency.
I think these are great. They're so important. Like these create such a sense of calmness when something challenging is presenting you. I wanted to kind of add in some other ways that consistency have really helped me personally, and I'm sure you've seen it, because consistency we see it's part of success and all these positive words, hard work, dedication. But if you look on the substance abuse side, right, there's just this weird sense of lots of failures, negativity. There's just a stigma around it in general. And so I wanted to bring up how consistency has paid dividends for people that have failed religiously. I know people that have been in 10, 12, 15 rehabilitations, right? Drug rehabs. I mean, over and over and over. And people have kind of ignored where they're at. And then all of a sudden, this person has years of sobriety. Maybe they have a new business. Maybe they're doing well, married. Maybe they have kids. Whatever it is that they're, putting forth as happiness from them. It's interesting when people ask what they're doing. It's did you look at what they did before? They never stopped, right? I mean, you don't want to hear someone say drug rehabs are checkboxes or getting therapy is a checkbox or whatever it is. But if you look at people that have had a really rough life on the substance abuse side, the ability and willingness to check a box of going to rehab and then fail and then do it again and then fail and then do it again over and over dozens of times. I mean, have you ever asked or talked to someone that has done that and then what they've learned from it? It's amazing. The drive behind them is absolutely incredible. And so that was actually kind of what made me want to talk about consistency today.
I think what I'm hearing is you have to accept that failure is going to be a part of the process.
Totally.
No matter what the process is.
It is part of the process.
And that's where some people break down. And
all the time.
You and I are both religious.
Yeah.
We're both, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This last couple weeks ago, we had General Conference, and something that really stuck out to me, and that was that being perfected is not the same thing as perfectionism. Perfectionism is a problem. That means you think it's got to be all good all the time, no matter what.
Right.
The problem with people who are perfectionists, like me, and I've had to get really good about this over time, especially as I got more into business ownership and other things, is that you mentioned something, having a calm, being able to take a breath, even when you fail, when you trip up, when you slip, when you take a step back, whether that be in a race, falling short, whether it be in substance abuse or, sobriety and you slip up, whether it be, an angry outburst, whether it be in business and losing a lot of money on a deal. It's so easy to, especially when you're perfectionistic approach, to overreact, to think the world's ending, to think that, oh my gosh, can we bounce back from this? To just get lost in that negative mindset, and then it just becomes a spiral. If you're taking a perfectionist approach, you become your own worst enemy. Versus, being perfected. The perfect example of this, in my opinion, is what we do at Forward Family Services with our kids who are on the spectrum and ABA therapy. ABA therapy is applied behavior analysis. When our techs are with a child, working with them, things like teaching them how to speak, how to eat, how to socialize, how to use the bathroom, they're tracking data points. And when you look at they have to track. Each child has a treatment plan.
You have like a team tracking them?
Yeah, we've got our clinicians. So our behavior technious, our mid-level supervisors, and our board-certified behavior analysts. Okay. And we employ 170 of these at Forward across 3 locations. A child has a treatment plan across 6 months. If that child, I would argue, is being more perfected, meaning they are being treated appropriately and effectively for autism, their data points, they're not going to look, way up here and like this, like they're perfect all the time, hitting every one. It's going to be like a scatter plot. It's going to be like boop, boop, beep, boop, 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 boop. Okay. But if it's working, you're going to notice that the data points, there may be some up here, some down here, some up here, some down here, but the overall trend is doing this over 6 months for the child.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not perfectionism. Yeah. That's being perfected.
Yeah. We do the same on the mental health side with our outcomes.
That is going the right direction.
Progress.
That is progress. That is improvement. Progress and improvement account and include failure. You can still be taking the same overall good direction and have some failures or have some setbacks. And that's appropriate. That's okay. That's normal. And I think that accepting before we can even truly get to like what does it take to bounce back from a slip up or messing up or falling back, I think before you even get to that, you just have to accept that that's always going to be part of the journey. And if you take I'm being a perfected approach mindset versus I have to be perfect all the time, perfectionistic, one is a lot more of a healthier mindset, a lot more of a give yourself some grace mindset.
Yeah.
Versus the other can become very toxic, and not only on your own, but if you've got people around you, even sometimes well-intentioned people, who are more perfectionistic, those are the ones that they shame, they say you didn't do this or you missed that, and they make you feel like the world's ended, and then it's like you surround yourself with enough people like that, and that becomes. You just buy into it. You believe it. You think that, oh my gosh, I messed up. And then you carry that on to people and you shame them, you slam them. But the right people to surround yourself with and the right mindset to have is, okay, it's like you'll say to me, I may miss a workout or have a bad workout. Forget it. Okay, tomorrow, next one.
Yep.
That's what Shaun always will say.
We don't need to add on, move on.
Yeah, forget it. Nope, don't even talk about it. Next one, next workout, get the next one. Yep, it's just, that's the mindset.
That is consistency though. Hitting the next one, that is consistency. Dropping it, letting it go, and moving to the next one, that's consistency, right? I mean, it's the same across the board, and I tell everyone that. You're not the only one that I harass, I promise.
Yeah, that's
anyone
fair.
That does that, I'm like, you can skip it. When it hits 2 or 3 days, we're going to have a chat.
Yep, for sure.
This is all good. I think the hardest thing, and that maybe people want to know, is how do you get to a point where you're aware, though? right?
When you're aware of.
When you're aware of that challenge that is in front of you, and you're aware of whatever tools you have in your kit, how do you get to that point? Because let's say you're consistent, and you get to a point where like something really, like the wheels, they really fall off. Like you're just in a point where you're just like, gosh, I've been doing all this stuff, A through Z, this is working out. How do you get to a point where you can truly sit there and just be like, all right, you know, as I like to say, challenge accepted. Let's do this, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you get there?
I think it almost seems to me like when you're saying, what's the point where you realize like this is clicking, like this is working?
When does it click?
I think we've touched on it a little bit already, and that is for me.
Yeah.
And I would argue for most. I think you shared an example of the same. It is results. It's when you start to get a taste of results. So
your mindset has to change, is what you're saying. Like you have to make a personal decision to even see a result, no matter who tells you what.
Results create belief in the process, 100%. Without results, there is no belief in the process.
No one can hold your hand at the very beginning then. If you're going to go on your first run, there really is no how or why or what. Put your shoes on and go run a mile.
Yeah.
See how you feel, and you have to learn that lesson yourself. No one else can do it for you.
That's where it starts. But I feel like when you really feel it clicks, like your question, where it's like, hey, what is this working? When have I kind of maybe not arrived, but because you never really arrive.
Well, that first arrival though,
but
lay it out.
When does it click? Like to me, take what you're training me on right now.
Okay.
So, so similar to not around Shaun's time, here I have my best half marathon. And then shortly thereafter, I'm diagnosed with a double sports hernia, which by the way,
don't recommend.
Highly don't recommend a double sports hernia. Yeah. And it totally disrupts. I went for my half marathon. I was going to go to marathon training next. That completely gets thrown, under the gutter. And, from there, I'm having to, get some, assess my options. And, my doctors are highly trying to stay away from operation, and so I just get some shots to kind of help with the pain a little bit. And essentially from there, I'm kind of feeling down and like, well, what can I do from here? And more or less, I get the version from you, and then another guy that I hired as a physical trainer that I worked with. It's like, okay, you can be a little punk about it and whine and mellow in it, or you can change your approach, change your training. We adapt and we make it work. And when I think I started to really believe, because it hurt, the double sports hernia really hurts. I'm talking, you sneeze, it's like an instant knife into your pelvis. That's what that feels like.
You've told me.
It hurts a lot. Running is even more so.
I can't imagine.
And so for me, when I've been running for 3 months and all I feel is constant pain, and I'm topping out at 9 to 10 minutes a mile, and my heart rate's all over the place. After 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm doing these strength workouts that the guy I'm working with on those tells me exactly what to do. I'm working through it. I'm doing it what he says, following that instruction. I'm following your plan. And then all of a sudden, whereas for 6 months I saw nothing but, and felt nothing but pain, and my results are all over the place. And then all of a sudden, in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, when I sneeze, it feels half as bad as it did. I'm doing some specific leg workouts and some rehab stuff that he's having me do. And then you're having me do some different stuff on the running side. And all of a sudden I see my heart rate, instead of being at, 150 when I'm running at, 9 minutes, all of a sudden I start to see it come down, like 145 at 9 minutes. Then 2 or 3 weeks in, it's like, this is working. This plan is working. I need to stick with this plan.
Don't deviate.
Don't stray from the plan. It's feeling good. I'm getting better results here. I haven't arrived. I haven't hit the goal, but this feels right. The first goal was feel better, don't hurt less. The other goal was I want to run again, and so we set the half marathon goal, to do 2 cities again.
Right. Yeah.
And by the way, this is all still with this. You're never truly like cured from a sports hernia.
No surgery yet.
Yeah. No surgery.
Gotcha.
And even with surgery, you're never truly cured.
Right.
Right. You got to kind of grow the tolerance and also kind of rehab it and get as strong as you can. So. Over time, that's when I felt that click, like 2 or 3 weeks in. And I was doing things that I had to do that I had not done previous. I completely changed my training. When I was, what kind of strength training I was doing, when I was doing it, what kind of cardio I was doing, when I was doing that, how I was combining the two, and certain days I shouldn't combine the two, all those things. And my nutrition, completely changed my nutrition. Lost 15 pounds during that time. Went from about 180 to 165.
Okay.
Which also made a huge ton of difference.
I bet.
And so I remember that about 2 weeks in is when I kind of felt like it clicked. 2 or 3 months later, the pain was so much less. And then go to run the 2 cities, a month after that, it was almost non-existent, the pain, except for when I really pushed myself.
Right.
And then I ran my PR by like 3 minutes.
With the injury. Yeah.
So it's like, even though I had that injury, I could have accepted the mindset that this isn't, can't run anymore, can't do this anymore. Like, okay, hey, if I talk to people who know better than me, and if I stick to this plan, and then once I got a little taste of those results, that built confidence in the plan, built the momentum, stuck with it, achieved the results, got my PR, had way less pain. And then, that really built confidence in you as a coach, and also just in this idea that, hey, whatever the challenge, there's generally a way to work through it. Now, did end up still getting the surgery. I do not recommend anyone stays permanently with a double sports hernia without getting surgery.
Zero medical advice here.
It also takes a little bit of mental fortitude, but like that, the way I guess my nature, and I do feel that most people would feel this way. If you get a little taste of the results, that should instill confidence in the process, and then don't deviate from the process. And if you do, and you will, when I say don't deviate, we mean generally, right? Except that you're going to have days that you miss, that you're sick, that
you're forced to deviate,
that you're sick, that you travel, that whatever.
Kids, work, school.
But the idea is that overall, that you don't deviate.
Yeah, funny thing is within all of this, there's the uncomfortability of asking others, right, for feedback, advice. What I have found with a lot of people, they don't want to hire a coach. They just don't want to, but they want results. They want me to tell them what to do. They want me to lay out a plan. They want everything there in front of them, except for letting go of someone else telling them what to do, and they do not want the accountability. They don't want it. And I explain that to them up front. Being consistent also means being accountable, because when you're not, your boxes aren't getting checked, you're very accountable. You're accountable for all of that stuff. And you're not just accountable to whoever is out there, maybe it's work or whatever it is, you're accountable up here. Yeah. Right? Confusion, lack of motivation, you're lost, you're missing things. When you're accountable up here, that's the worst. That's the worst place to be, because now you're just completely off the path again. You're starting over.
If you're prideful, too prideful, you're unwilling to accept feedback. If you're unwilling to accept feedback, you will not progress.
I agree. I'm the same way.
I see this. I see this all the time in business too, especially with this younger generation of new workers coming up that it's good to have ideas, okay, but regardless of when you're getting started, someone always knows better than you. Seek those people out.
I agree.
Seek their feedback out.
Listen to them.
And be humble enough to take it.
See if it's something that might be of value.
That doesn't matter if you're
Usually it is.
It doesn't matter if you're a CEO of a 170 person company. Doesn't matter if you're an entry level worker in that same company. At any stage, if you can't take feedback, you're not going to grow, professionally or personally. I think it's critical that people have certain, whether it's spiritual leaders, business mentors, obviously a lot of us have parents, grandparents. If you are not intentionally, or coaches,
right.
If you're not intentionally keeping such people in your life, it's one thing to actively keep that circle around you. I would argue that in addition to being intentional about we've talked about being intentional with a process for staying organized.
What's in front of you.
You also have to be intentional about who you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue to keep that circle small, by the way, but keep it a solid circle of people.
I mean, a good example of that's Dad, right? Dad's like that, right? How often does he come to us and say, oh, you know what? I was talking to this guy. He had such a great idea. He told me this, and I realized I could be doing. It's like, what on earth could he be doing differently?
For me, those people are.
He just is like, yeah.
Dad, you. I have two great business partners in Ash and April, Rick, and also Dave. I've got a great spiritual leader, Bishop Williams, who also happens to be a senior vice president of a global agricultural company.
Yeah.
Seek those people out. Some people make the mistake of being resentful to people that are successful or jealous. I mean, there's no need. That can be you just as well as it's them. All you have to do is ask. Listen, so many people seem to assume that, like, people don't have the time or the desire to want to help them. I mean, yeah, you get some people like that. I talked about a few of those in the last podcast, and you know what I did? I ditched them.
Moved on.
Find someone else.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're stuck there. You're not a tree. Move. So I mean, like, if you got to shed your circle from time to time, you do that. You do that.
I mean, I have people the same way, right? I have people that reach out, like I was saying, and they'll talk to me, and I always help people. I love helping people, especially in training. That's just my go-to. I love laying it out for them. I love explaining what they need and all this stuff. But I'll tell you, there are two very distinct paths. There are those that want to ask for help, but don't want the help. Mm-hmm. They just want to get knowledge, but then they want to be the ones that apply it over here. Yeah. No consistency, nothing at all. They might take a workout or two and apply it. Almost never. There's almost never results over here.
Right.
Then there's the ones that come and they're like, what do I need to do?
Right.
A through Z, here it is.
Right.
And they do A through Z. They do 98 to 100% of what I lay out.
Right.
You know how often they see results? Almost every single time. And when they don't, they figure it out quick and they'll see results the following week. Every single time.
Absolutely.
It is so telling and rewarding at the same time. But there is no other way.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of good examples. For me, I'm big on, what's the takeaway, right? So to me, there's been a lot of nuggets in this conversation.
Yeah.
But the takeaway to me is, we're talking about consistency and being able to, overcome whether it's challenges or to also be able to just reach new goals, to grow, to progress. And in order to be consistent, we've talked about being intentional. Being intentional, I think, based on this conversation, means having some kind of plan and a process. For me, I talked about my notebook / calendar. That's my process, and writing everything down. That keeps me intentional. We've also talked about the importance of a community or mentors, coaches, spiritual leaders, parents, grandparents, siblings, business partners. Okay. I think the combination of having a process and having a community, those two things are very effective at keeping you intentional.
Yeah.
I think without either one of those, it's difficult, or a lot more difficult, to be intentional. Being intentional is vital to being consistent.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're truly consistent, we've shared stories about starting to feel the momentum. Once you start to feel that momentum, typically you'll start to get a taste for results and ultimately achieve your result more often than not. Not all the time. We talked about that.
Right.
But that's part of the journey.
But being aware of when it's not all the time.
But you'll achieve that result more often than not. And when you achieve the result more often than not, you're going to be a confident person. And as a confident
Find the cycle.
As a confident person, you will effectively dig. You'll dig in, and you'll overcome, challenges and frankly achieve new goals consistently, weekly, monthly, yearly, whatever.
The framework is set, right? You're good.
Whether it's in business, whether it's in your family life, whether it's, endurance training like we do, anything. I sincerely believe that as laid out will work across anything in your life spectrum. Anything, if you apply that.
I don't know if I can add anything to that. I mean, that's what I do, right? I have a cycle. I have failures, but doing things, and I do things very intentionally. They all have goals, whether they're big or small. I tell myself, some of those rewards that you say sometimes don't come, they're just delayed. They're not just going to disappear. They're just delayed, right? So I stay on that path.
Agreed.
Stay intentional and dig in.
Yeah. So
next week,
be consistent, and in the spirit of consistency, we'll be here again.
Yeah.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday will be great though.
With Evan.
It's gonna liven up with Evan for sure.
And I do look forward to, maybe these people are getting sick of hearing us now after a couple episodes. So I look forward to throwing a third voice in the mix with Evan. He's got a lot of great stories, and we'll chat with him, and we'll look forward to digging in again on the next round.
Yeah, good chat today.
Thanks.
Awesome.